Something I get asked a lot is what do I think is going to happen in Chapter 8? And I know that sounds like a simple question, but I think ultimately, it's really not. Maybe I'm just overthinking things, wouldn't be the first time, but it's really hard to say. There's so many things to consider that it's like, I don't really know. But we're gonna try, and so today we're gonna be talking about why it feels Chapter 8 is so hard to predict and a potential outline for it. If you're new here, hello, I'm Mari, the ditziest dragon princess you'll ever know. If you're new, welcome. If you're, not new, welcome back. I did not write this part out, so we are literally just improving. I'm gonna get to my script. I'm gonna get back to my script. I'm like, I can't do this, man. I can't talk without a script. I think one of the main issues with figuring out what Chapter 8 is gonna be is that we don't know the dev team's roadmap. We don't know how long this game is gonna be around for. Twist is a cash cow franchise in Japan, so it makes sense they keep it going for as long as possible. But that also means we don't know when we're gonna get to the actual meat of the story. Although I do like the slice of life going to magic school thing, I think the prologue really drives home that there is a deeper story besides magic school shenanigans. And not to mention, I don't think we have enough information to fully go into the deeper storyline yet. I've been working on another video for a couple of months, and while I think I might have cracked the deeper story, shit man, I don't know. I don't have a lot of concrete evidence to go on, so I can't say if we're closer to the deeper story of the game or if we still have some setting up to do to, get there. And speaking of setup, we need to talk about Chapter 7 before we can get to 8. I think, like a lot of JP players, I'm kind of emotionally checked out of Chapter 7 because of how long this has been going on. Chapter 7 originally started in December 2022. This has been going on for over 2 years. And while on one hand, I'm glad we're getting to see everyone's dream, couldn't this have been a vignette or something? Is this all truly necessary? But more important, the pacing, which I think is definitely going to affect upcoming chapters, I think a lot of Chapter 8 is going to depend on how Chapter 7 ends. The prologue in books 1 through 5 weren't super dependent on the previous book when it came to the plot, but book 6 changed that. It was heavily dependent on past overblots. And because of Malleus's overblot, I think Chapter 8 is going to really delve into the aftermath of Chapter 7, or at least it's going to depend on it in some way. I definitely have some ideas about how Chapter 7 could end. I think the most likely is we'll beat Malleus and end his overblot, everyone wakes up, Malleus gets expelled and sent back to Briar Valley. And then there'll be 2 outcomes to that. Everyone is big mad at Malleus, which honestly, valid. Or the river Leith, I don't fucking know, that keeps getting mentioned gets fully repaired, and Styx uses it to wipe everyone in Twisted Wonderland's memory of the incident, so yeah. No one remembers, and it's like it never happened. Also, Malleus doesn't get expelled in that scenario, because no one remembers he overblotted. Like I said, I think the first one is the most likely thing. The other idea I have, and I don't know how possible this would be, and also I do think it's sort of out of character, but I could see Malleus casting the spell earlier just on NRC, and then in this dream he pretends to go berserk, and so the whole you'll be heroes of your own fairy tales or whatever, it isn't referring to their dreams, it's referring to him intentionally playing the overblotted villain, and they all need to defeat him, but he's in on it? Although honestly, even though we sort of have a precedence for this with Endless Halloween Night, I don't think it's super possible, and I don't know if Malleus would want to set himself up as the sole villain. At least in Endless Halloween Night, he was sharing that role with others and was doing it for the ghosts. I don't know if he'd want everyone seeing him and only him as a villain, and I don't know if he'd want to give this to Lilia as a gift. My final idea is that we enter another time loop or something before Malleus, is beat or something. I know a lot of people believe in that theory, and man, I don't know, but maybe Crowley manages to wake up and sees things are going super badly and turns back time to avoid this whole mess? I don't know. I think the gang beating Malleus and he lost it for reals is the most likely. I think he's gonna get expelled for this, or hey, maybe the River Leth thing will actually come into play. But yeah, seeing the trend in the main story that things are gonna be more dependent on each other, I think Chapter 8 is gonna deal with the fallout of Chapter 7, and the most likely scenario is Malleus getting expelled and shit getting serious. So yeah, my Chapter 7 end predictions, we beat Malleus and take him out of his overblot, he gets expelled for very obvious reasons and returns to Briar Valley, and Grimm eats the block crystal left behind. Now that we've talked about that, we can finally get to Chapter 8. That being said, what do I think is going to happen in Chapter 8? Again, I have no solid evidence for any of this, and this is pure speculation. We are just spitballing here. Because of Malleus's overblot, there's a lot of diplomacy issues, and tensions between Fae and humans is getting high, but for the most part, I think this is gonna be more of a background thing for a reason that'll make itself evident later. Lilia retires to the land of the Crimson Dragons. I don't remember if that's what it's actually called. And keeps in contact with a few people. Sebek and Silver stay at NRC because they do need to earn their mage licenses and stuff, although neither of them want to. They want to be with Malleus. Yu remains in contact with Malleus via letters. No one else does except for Silver and Sebek, though. Everyone tries to pick up the pieces from the overblot and continue on with their lives. School resumes. Grimm is getting more and more unhinged from consuming the block crystals. He has more episodes like he did in Chapter 5, but this time it's not just to Yu. Other students are getting injured. Crowley is having a hard time keeping things under wraps and dealing with the public fallout of the overblocks, and this isn't helping. He's constantly getting onto Yu's case about controlling Grimm better, willfully ignoring that they're also getting injured. This is causing both Grimm and Yu distress since Yu is getting injured and berated, and Grimm feels guilty about attacking Yu and not really being able to control it. The school puts more energy into preventing overblocks before they happen, so while the shadow of all the overblocks hang over campus, the atmosphere does actually get a lot better. It takes some time, but it happens. However, things are not getting better with Grimm. He's still wigging out and attacking people. Because the mood on campus is better and there's more help for students therapy-wise, Grimm is running out of options for block crystals and is getting desperate. So desperate that he intentionally uses a load of magic to generate blot, and right before he could overblot, he eats his mage stone. Yu isn't pleased about that and getting pretty irritated with Grimm, and he gets defensive about it and says he doesn't need a mage stone. He's a great magician after all. And not to mention, mage stones don't actually take all the blot from magic, it only takes a portion of it, so he'll be fine. Prom and summer vacation are fast approaching by now. Malleus writes to Yu, inviting them to stay with him during the summer since otherwise they'd be fending for themselves in Ramshackle for a few months. He also invites Grimm. He knows the risk and what's been going on, but he figures the Royal Guard will be better equipped to take care of Grimm than Yu could. Not to mention, this means Yu isn't getting injured so much. They accept the invitation, but like I said earlier, I don't think Grimm is in on these letters, it's just Yu and Malleus. And Yu doesn't tell Grimm right away, so he doesn't know. As much as we say Yu carries the brain cell and heart shackle, no, they really don't. They may have the brain cell more often, but as we've seen with past chapters, they can and have made extremely dumb decisions. People around campus are giving Grimm the cold shoulder because of his outbursts, and while I'm sure not all of them are sympathetic to Yu, I think at least their classmates are. We do see them standing up for Yu and defending them when Grimm tries to throw them under the bus in Cruel's rich fur coat vignette. I think they see what's going on and feel bad for them, so they just ignore Grimm but don't give Yu the same treatment. That would really piss Grimm off and he's getting irritated. He makes some snide comment in passing about it, and Deuce tells him to knock it off. He points out that Grimm is making Yu's life pretty hard and it's shitty to be mad that other people are trying to be nice to them, or at least polite. This of course only makes Grimm more angry, so he and Deuce aren't on great terms at the moment. I've talked about this before, but I think although the four of them are a package deal, there's definitely the illusion that some of them are closer to each other than others. Deuce is a lot kinder to Yu than Ace is, he's much more willing to be emotionally vulnerable with them. Yu is a lot kinder to Deuce than they are Ace. So it creates this image that Deuce and Yu are closer friends than, say, Ace and Yu, even though that's not necessarily true. If you'd like to hear more about this dynamic, I go more into detail in my Traitor Ace video, but because of this illusion, when Grimm sees Deuce stand up for Yu, he gets the impression Deuce is more loyal to Yu than he is Grimm. Prom is coming up soon. We don't know a lot about how prom at NRC works. The school's a mishmash of United States English and Japanese schools. I know other countries have prom, but I don't know if they're as date-oriented as US ones. I'm gonna assume NRC's isn't as date-heavy, but it's still a thing you could do. In private, Ace asks Yu to prom, and they're like, no, we're going as a friend group. You mean Grimm and Deuce. And of course, Ace isn't super happy about that, but he acquiesces and is like, okay, fine, we're going as a group. Later after club stuff, he runs into Epple and vents to him about it. Grimm, heading back to Ramshackle after club activities where he's being alienated, comes across them and hears Ace talking about how he asked Yu to prom. Epple immediately starts roasting Ace about failing to get a date and getting friend-zoned, because let's be real here, he would absolutely do that. Grimm is mad and feeling like he's the second choice and not, like, prioritized and truly valued as a friend. Maybe he confronts Ace about it, maybe not, but either way, he's furious and slinks off. During this whole time, blood has been accumulating in Grimm's body and not fading away because of the constant alienation and perceived slights. He hasn't had a block crystal in an extremely long time, he's angry, and he's lonely. he's doing really badly. Prom comes up and Grimm is kind of isolating himself because again, he thinks he's not a part of the group and stuff. He makes himself scarce when the party comes around and you, although they've been looking around Ramshackle for him, can't find him. They assume he must have left early and they go to prom. Grimm stays behind at Ramshackle, angry and upset and doing extremely poorly emotionally. During this time, something happens and Grimm learns Malleus invited you to Castle Blackscale for the summer. Maybe he sends you a package with a note alluding to it. Maybe Grimm finds a letter from Malleus telling you what to expect during Briar Valley Summers. I don't know. But he finds out and he doesn't realize he's been invited too, and this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. He's already felt abandoned by Ace and Deuce, but now Yu is going away for the summer and he thinks he's being left behind. This completely ruins Grimm and the negative emotions overflow at the supposed betrayal of the one person he's the closest to. He goes to prom to confront Yu and honestly, just to ruin everyone's night. Yu obviously tells him he's also invited and apologizes for forgetting to tell him, but Grimm refuses to believe them and thinks that they're just lying to make him feel better. During the ensuing argument between him and Yu, the blot in his body reaches critical levels and he overblots, turning into that chimera creature we fight in the prologue. I think in this instance, this happens during prom because everyone's in their ceremonial robes during that initial fight. And while I would hope everyone would get their own fancy prom outfits, they probably just wear their ceremonial robes because it's a fancy school function. Anyways, everyone tries to break Grimm's overblot, but it doesn't work. All the blot he's consumed from the past overblots is helping power him, and even together, the students and staff are not strong enough to beat him. Maybe even other students go into overblot trying to beat him and then become part of the problem. But Grimm is attacking students, the school is destroyed, and several people, if not the majority of people on campus, die in the attack. Crowley, seeing all of this go down and is one of the few survivors, is horrified at what's happened. Now, I definitely have an idea for what the deeper story to the game is, but I'm not going to really get into it other than I do think there's some time shenanigans going on. Anyway, this is not the first time something like this has happened. For whatever reasons he may have, whether it's genuine grief over losing so many people, or he just doesn't want to go to prison, Crowley turns back time to the beginning of the school year yet again, hoping to avoid this catastrophe again. We wake up at the coffin and Chapter 8 ends. So yeah, that's my vague idea for Chapter 8. Honestly, I don't know how much of it will actually happen, probably none of it. I do think we'll see Grimm's overblot next and Malleus gets expelled and something happens at prom, but again, this is entirely speculation. Girl, I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed this little audio fanfic if we're being completely honest. Trying to figure out what's going to happen for Chapter 8 when Chapter 7 hasn't ended is really difficult. Chapter 8 is probably going to be very dependent on Chapter 7, so until that ends we can only really just wildly speculate. I do believe we'll get a Ramshackle chapter in the sense we'll see Grimm's overblot, but really, that's all. I do think we'll learn more about Ramshackle's past, but because of how popular the game is, I think that's going to be way further down the line. We might get some tidbits in Chapter 8, but ultimately, I don't know. But thank you for watching! And a very special thank you to my ladyfingers-in-waiting for supporting me and allowing me to continue to make these videos. The Royal Court as of February 2025 includes Eel, Omimi, Visa, Michgal2189, Yozula Kiseki, Ukaku, Richter32, Yungumo, Barafo, and Crab Jail. Thank you guys! Or if you're Ruby's VA, thank you guys. If you'd like to become a part of the Ladyfingers in Waiting, I have channel memberships and also Twitch subs if that's more of your thing. And if you stayed this long, thank you! I hope I don't sound too crazy.